The 10 plagues which Moses called today in the military science and world of development of weapons, they call them biological weapons like viruses. 4,000 years ago, Moses was able to produce viruses and he humbled the entire nation of Egypt until they say, you go. You understand? So, first liberation is the knowledge that there is God. Bible says the knowledge of God is the beginning of wisdom. So the fear to know that there is God was the first liberation. Nations like England, regardless of what they are currently, 1,000 years ago, they embraced the knowledge of God.
We look at Israel.
Yes.
God sends Moses to liberate it into freedom from then liberate it from the bondage,
Yes.
then to the desert and all that, leading them to the age of Canaan. So what is the role and what is the relevance of Moses in the freedom campaign?
Moses is wider, and I wish we could narrow the Moses into leadership, education, and society, the evolution of the society. But we will basically, as previously mentioned about the Moses' education system in the liberation struggle. So, education in the liberation struggle. Education is crucial, and the best model of education is that which Moses was given. Moses' education is not a man thinking, it's a man moved by God to moved by God to receive information, and this information was was cutting across all sectors of life. There were social laws and concepts. There were scientific laws and concepts to guide in hygiene. Like if a plague broke out, God said a person shall be set apart for 7 days. And after 7 days, they will check him. If they are like scabies developing or sores, he will be set apart for another 14 days. And so that's the medicine. Today, you saw 2020 Ebola. The time was the metamorphosis of a virus is 7 days. So the laws that Moses was given, the commandments, the precepts, the statutes, they were to govern our society, so that a society is not just moving for the sake of having some sort of knowledge. Previously, before Moses, there were all kinds of knowledge. The Greeks in particular had even developed a book which is the equivalent of Bible. And so they developed their own concepts of who God is, of what power means, of what authority means, of what economy is, the security economy, the social economy, the money economy, monetary economy, and so other economies. So they had the entire scope covered of all areas of life. Actually, Moses is one of the students and beneficiaries of this education. The reason why God took him into that education was that if you will correct an error, you must know what the error is. God didn't take him there to increase his knowledge, but it's important that we know what evil is before we can provide a solution, before we can create a medicine. The reason why most times scientists fail to develop a vaccine or a dose to treat a certain disease is that they do not know the life of a disease. They try to look for it and it dodges all kinds of. So studying that becomes a difficult. So God gave Moses an entire an entire an, an entire handbook of all the above. But we want to limit ourselves to knowledge and liberation. What sort of knowledge one needs to be liberated? For years, the world, students, scholars, philosophers argued that man is just a physical body. Along the way, others, part of the schools of thinking, came up and said, but man also has a mind. And so they say, but a mind is superior to the functions of the body. So they accepted somehow that a man is a living body and also he is a mind, that the superior force is with his mind. And along the way, some other classes of learners came to realize that man is also a spirit. So we have the world that believes that man is just a biology. He dies, decomposes, and is gone. We have others who believe that man is two. He has a body and a soul. That's where he ends. For instance, that's where the science is. They believe in the biological nature and the mental, that you have a soul. They agree that you have a soul from where thoughts are generated, ideas, and so on and so forth. But a few believe that man is a body, soul, and spirit. And so those ones, they, they, they know man is a spirit, but they do not know where does this spirit God submits. When a man dies, where does the spirit go? So there we develop all kinds of notions and ideas. Some they say when a man dies, he's gone. Others say he's resurrected in the sons, the children that he brings forth, he appears again and enters them. And others say that they remain hanging as spirits. You hear them talking of the Bajaja, like here in Uganda. When you hear them saying Bajaja, they are simply saying that the people who died are still coming to guide them, to tell them that this and that, to give them some sense of direction and instructions, and so on and so forth. So all these failures, young boy, no, don't stay the other side. All these failures would be handled by the first of its kind, the revelation that God gave Moses, starting with the book of Genesis, to reveal that God created man in his own image. And so the first set of knowledge was about man's origin. You can never be knowledgeable enough if you do not know the origin, because the one who formed you, if he made you as a excavator to dig, you cannot work as a bridal car to carry brides on the weddings. So want to discover your purpose, you must discover the source, your creator, who manufactured you. It is foolish enough to say that man just evolved out of chemical reactions, because we do not have any other thing that has come as a result. We don't have a camera which has come as a result of chemical reaction. We have never seen a house built by reacting of forces. If everything we have has come as a result of our own inventions, we we initiated, we invented. How do we come to a silly conclusion that we who are inventing everything, we are a product of nothing, that nothing made us, and out of nothing we just evolved and chemicals reacted, started like a lizard, went on evolving and evolving up to where we are? It's really foolish. So God gave knowledge. So the liberation number one was to liberate man, because Moses' knowledge does not only address the move of the children of Israel, the nation called Israel, from the bondage of Israel, of Egypt, to the promised land. No, it was just a document for humanity. So we don't read the Bible as God speaking to one group of people, a race called Jews or Hebrews. The Bible addresses humanity. It's a book of creation and liberation of the creation. So the first liberation was to know that there is God. The Bible said the knowledge of God is the beginning of wisdom. So the fear to know that there is God was the first liberation. Nations like England, regardless of what they are currently, 1,000 years ago, they embraced the knowledge of God. And countries, when you go like Scotland, Wales, Ireland, the foundation before they became what they are was they were primitive. They were witches. They were poor. They were living in, I mean, they were agrarian and no industries, no nothing. But when the knowledge of God hit their minds, every other page of life, what they came to call the Renaissance or the Enlightenment. We have the first Enlightenment and the second, and people attribute these Enlightenments. They say the rebirth of knowledge. Knowledge does not rebirth itself. So they are saying that because they are looking for who to attribute these ideas, and they seem to be selfish enough to agree that one can take it all. So because no one takes the honor of having initiated, they prefer saying it rebirth itself. But that is wrong. That is history choosing to ignore God. The correct answer or setting of this is that God restored knowledge in mankind. And so society began to revolve and they moved to a better place, calling evolution, the societal evolution from fruit gathering, from just ordinary farming to making machines to easy agriculture, then to produce mechanized life. That man moves riding or driving, man can store his information. What all this became, when you read the Bible, you will read tablets where God first wrote. When they moved past tablets, God said, write on scrolls, get pages and write on papers. And after, of course, this you have tabs. And after writing on papers, God says, I will write in your heart. Now, mankind is struggling to say, I can put information on a chip and I put it on your forehead. I can put it here. They are trying to also to run with information, the unseen, to have the information stored in you. But way back, God revealed that He has capacity to download information in your heart. So science is always behind, but because people have no knowledge of God, when they hear this language, they rush to conclude that science is so advanced. Science is not advanced. The 10 plagues which Moses called today in the military science and world of development of weapons, they call them biological weapons like viruses. 4,000 years ago, Moses was able to produce viruses and he humbled the entire nation of Egypt until they say, you go. You understand? So, first liberation is the knowledge that there is God. The second liberation is to know that humans are not created to be in a bondage of others or to rule or control others. Leadership is not man controlling man. So you never seek to control man. Leadership is service rendered, that I can talk, so you talk. Me, I can write, you write. So you lead me in writing as I will lead you in talk. So it is the service we offer to one another. God didn't create man to rule over man. The dominion which we read in the scriptures, it only says, have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and the cattle, the cows, animal, stuff that walk on the ground. God didn't give man dominion over a fellow man. So the greatest oppression in man is not mainly those oppressed. The greater bondage rather is with those who oppress others. Actually, they are more oppressed. The oppressor is more oppressed than the oppressed.
How?
Why? Because he looks at himself as a as an instrument of evil. And two, he's forever intimidated. You can never oppress someone. You already know that he's harmless and he's weak and he's incapable of challenging you. You can't oppress that person. Most of the times, the oppressors are afraid of a society evolving or growing, of the brilliancy of the concepts that this society together is developing. So out of fear, because they can't outsmart you. If I knew that you are going to plant 2 trees and I have a bit to plant 200, I plant 200 and then I leave you with your 2 trees. Actually, you come to sell them to me in my factory that I can add them and produce more wood. But because I can't outsmart you, you have a bit to wake up at 5 when me I will wake up at 8, then the only thing I can do is to say we will act a law where you are not allowed to go to farm before it is 8, so that we wake up at the same time, because I have no ability to get. So the oppressor, he's more in bondage and he's tormented within. He offers himself the kind of knowledge that says that he cannot be useful to the society around him other than just tying them up together here and suck the little he can suck from them, or hinder them from moving further than he's himself able to move. So for the fear of gifts and talents among other people, you choose rather to make them outcasts. You make them outcasts. You render them incapable. So the education number 2 is to free your mind. Oftentimes you will read the Bible, God say, you shall not oppress the stranger because you were a stranger in Egypt. What he's simply saying, you shall now be free in the mind, unlike your captors. Not simply to revenge, but not to think cheaply like they did. God said, your test of freedom will be how you treat the strangers. Don't kill them. God says they are strangers that I'll be bringing to you to measure, to test the level of your leadership, development, your level of freedom. So that was level number 2. The third level was about what you worship, the thing you tremble at, the thing you honor, the thing you pay homage to. God told them, you shall worship no any other God. Not that he's intimidated or fears competition that other God will outshine him. He's simply saying, all other gods are not gods, for you have witnessed with your own eyes how I have rendered, how I have defeated. This is the strongest civilization then, Egypt, and they claim that by the systems given them by their gods, they have been able to do. And God allowed even a challenge. He said, make a snake, they make. So let's make this. So they brought all the magic to how fight could go. And God said, anymore, they couldn't. Anymore, they couldn't anymore. So God says, therefore, let it be revealed to you that there is only one God. Any other thing less than that, it shall be bondage. So the third level of knowledge, of education, is knowing that there is but one God, and that God is the real liberator of mankind from the bondages of life. When you are in the womb, it's a small space, it's a bondage. At 9 months, they say she has delivered a child. The child is delivered from the bondage of being just a baby. When you stay a baby forever, you stay in bondage. The Bible, we just read the scripture, say, while you're still a child, you are not different from a slave. Every child is a slave. Everyone who has less knowledge as of a child, he is a slave. It's not a slave that someone is holding him a captive. He's a slave because he does not have ability to expand his life. So he has less knowledge concerning his own life. He can deliver less, he can do less. I wish to attend to another question because these things are many that in the future we have to develop them into books, to develop them into books, and so that there is literature to read of the same, and so the audio videos and all that.
Yeah. Now we look at the making of Moses, the process he passes through to become that qualified person. This is a guy who has acquired all this education as you have prescribed. He has all the PhDs, he has acquired education from the greatest civilization. I mean, he has been in power, he has been in the palace, he has been the prince, and all that. He has been closer to power, he has attained everything. But then God calls him, and he happens to lack self-esteem. He says, I have a stammering tongue. He happens to be insecure. He happens to, I would say, to be in a bondage, in the prison of maybe not appreciating himself. What is the importance of now understanding oneself, and what is the importance of this incident to all the would-be Moseses in Africa who are going to champion the campaign of freedom?
First of all, the evolution of man is a great journey. One man has to realize the cause that he is not conceived in the mother's womb and then pushed on earth, then chase food like just a duck or any other bird or an animal, and then eat, grow, die. So here, Moses, first God extracts him from the rest of the Jews for a purpose of exposure. Leaders are made. We are all born leaders, but leadership is institutional, is structural, is systematic. Who ex, what you are exposed to determines what sort of a human being and a leader you become. God, at that time, the Jews had started suffering terribly, that he has to extract the leader. He moves him and takes him to palace to to have a free mind. A free mind in a sense that while others they are portion food, they say put on only that, he sits on that table with the royals where they eat enough, they are exposed to larger life, big life. Decisions are listened to. When you talk here, they pay attention to. A child who has been raised by oppressing parent, he can never be a great liberator because the leader in him is killed in the course of transfer or growth or maturity processes. So Moses, the first 40 years, is exposed to education. When Nelson Mandela would be a great leader in South Africa, he went to England in Europe and studied the oppressors' systems. In South Africa, they would not allow him to study to go far. So he went in Europe and studied law. When Martin Luther in America would challenge the racism, he went and studied law to know the enemy's weapons, to know the size of the enemy, actually to have the mold kativa in which the enemy thinks, because it's you must simply know the mold, how he generates his thoughts. And then in the same way, you generate, if it's generating thoughts of this size to kill, you generate the thoughts of this size to heal. That's how you only challenge. You must get the mold. If the enemy, Bible says we are not ignorant of the enemy's schemes or devices, but most of the time the enemy develops devices and we don't know. So he ends up outsmarting us. He defeats us. So what happens? Moses is exposed to the Egyptian systems, all of them, the military, the law, the what. He could hear the language, and it was good for him to have a mind enlarged. After 40 years, Moses is now thinking like them, and yet God doesn't want him to think like them. He wants to have exposure to their thoughts, but not to be like them. So now God takes him again in another system, and God humbles the great prince he has become. He goes to serve as a shepherd, now to develop another character or attribute. So Moses, he is exposed now to a dimension of leadership which is called humility. Humility is higher than just having skills, because one mindset of all oppressors is pride. They are proud even when they don't have sufficient knowledge. So pride is a destroyer. It destroys the ignorant and the wise, the knowledgeable. So God takes him again to develop a humble person of Moses. 40 years is in the wilderness, and God trains him to be isolated. Leaders must learn both sides, how to be humble and how to think in a bigger creative way. Because if they are only humble and they are not exposed to the larger modes of thinking, molding, the larger modes of thinking, they will only be humble and useless. They can deliver little, though they are humble, but their service is little. You need to be exposed to great ideas and then be as humble as possible. But this couldn't be something that Moses would learn on book in a class, right? And this, God takes him 40 years in another place. He humbles him. By the time God brings Moses to go and now work, Moses said, who am I? Because now every work that God is talking about is big for him, that it requires him to acknowledge that unless God helps me, I cannot take on this.
What about my PhD?
When you know yourself, you will easily destroy yourself. When you think I can do it on my own, I have what it takes. In life, the most successful people, they never at any time think that they have what it takes. And it's been saying more learning, more you think, or more you will feel you have not learned anything. The more you learn, the more you feel like you are empty. Most ignorant people feel that they are full of knowledge. The most ignorant, they're always convinced, there's a way they feel like they are knowledgeable. And the most knowledgeable, they always feel like they are empty. And that's the difference, that humility makes you, there's a teaching in the Bible, the Bible says, better is a servant who is young and still willing to learn than an old king who is arrogant and is not open to any counsel, any form of learning. The Bible said the end of that king will be disastrous. You look at that. So Jesus comes to teach the kingdom. He said you have to be like a child. A child is always hungry for knowledge. He doesn't know. He asks everything, asks everything, asks everything. And that's how they grow. So Moses has gone through two. He's been humbled by the wilderness and he has been exposed to higher thoughts in the palace. And once God combined these two, the expanded mind and the humble attitude, that you are able to say, God, who am I? Who am I is a question that will bring resources you need. Knowing that I don't have all that it takes, then God said, now you are willing and ready to be helped. And that's how Moses received all the miracles that Moses saw and did to lead Israel from Egypt to the wherever he reached, was because he was always willing to learn every day and learn in humility.